Great, we proceed with tactical examples. Now this is a position from my game against Grishuk from the World Championship. It is pretty simple, and I included it for several other reasons. First of all, from this example you can see that even a player of Grishuk's caliber, and this is a very high caliber, can miss some tactics, and even seemingly simple tactics in the heat of the battle. And it is also an example from the World Championship I won, and nice memories, so to speak, and a pretty nice trick. Now if you take a look at this position, you will see that first of all it's an endgame, which once again should remind you that tactics are not only there for mating attacks in the middle game or in the openings, that they are perfectly viable in the endgame as well. And you can see that black has two serious bishops, which could potentially become very strong. That king is centralized, which is good for the endgame, and rook on b2 is active. As drawbacks, you could also say that king is vulnerable on c7, and rook on e7 is very passive. In fact, it is an important feature, and if you take a look, you will see that in fact rook has nowhere to go. Like the squares like g7 or e6, they are pretty ridiculous, and otherwise there are simply no squares. And there are checking possibilities. Plus, there is necessity, because it is an endgame. And if I do not create anything, then at the end two bishops will be stronger than two knights. So, what do? We saw that the king is vulnerable. We check our possibilities. What do we check? We check captures, we check checks. This we know by now. What kind of checks do we have? I mean, we just go meticulously. We one by one. We try rook d7 check. Okay, he takes. Another check. He goes. What did we achieve? Nothing. We try another check. We try this one. And now we already see it is getting tricky. He takes. We give check. Now we see our features of the position. After king b7, we can go knight takes c5 check, and the rook on d7 is hanging, and the king on b7 is attacked, and we manage to capture on c5 with check. So returning, just remember we are still here thinking about the position. We by now saw the possibility of some folks. We saw that the bishop on c5 is vulnerable. Now, when we continue to analyze rook 3 d7 check, rook takes d7, knight e6, we saw that king b7 loses. Now we look at king b6. Now we see we have rook b8 check. And although we soon discover that it doesn't work because of rook b7, we still make a certain note in our mind. The rook on b2 could also become vulnerable. And we say, great, can't we use it somehow? Rook d7 didn't work. Rook 3 d7 didn't work. So what kind of other checks do we have? We have knight e6 check. And now you know already by now that king b7 is answered by knight takes c5. That king b6 is answered with rook b8 check. Rook is hanging on b2, and after rook b7, king b7, you already know that the bishop is hanging on c5. And after rook takes e6, you already know the motive. You go rook d7 check, king b6 only move, rook b8 check, king a6, and okay, after two checks just to win sometimes, king a6, I took on b2, the motive you already know. And after bishop a4, okay, white won the exchange. And basically after e5, bishop b5, rook d8, and just white continued to play accurately, and here just knight e4, all pieces join the attack, and somehow pinning black left and right, white somehow managed to win more material. But basically this is the technical part, and white won the game. I mean, you can take a closer look at the end of the game if you like, but I would like to return to the starting position and basically to take the stock of what we did and what we learned in this example. We know by now well enough that we should start looking at checks. In the position where the kings are vulnerable, we also learned that even if the line doesn't work, we can gather tactical information from this line. We could see which motives could possibly come into play, and this helps us to find the right solution, which in this case was knight e6, rook e6, and rook d7 check. Everything pretty easy, everything with checks. And that's about it. In spite of its simplicity, I gave this example because, as I said, it is interesting to see that something like this could be missed by a player of Grishuk's caliber. That is, if you ever miss something tactical, if you ever miss something like this, you should remember that it happens even to the very best of us, that we are all human, and that basically the work on tactical skills should be continued at basically every stage. So we go on with our examples.